this morning, on this Monday, the 7th of April, I repeat my call on Facebook live stream to the international community that on behalf of the People's Anti-Corruption Movement, I have led a formal complaint to the Assistant Commissioner of Crimes at the Auditor's Office on Tuesday, the 3rd of April, against the Honourable Prime Minister, Honourable James Marape as Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, for bribing members of Parliament using public finances. Now, this complaint has been circulated, it's been copied to the chairman of the ICAC on the same day, the Ombudsman Commission on the same day, and the NCDC Central Command on the same day, and the Commissioner of Police. Now, this complaint is straightforward, and I will read it to the Papua New Guinea public and the international community. I register a formal complaint against the Honourable James Marape, who's abused the inherent powers of the Office of the Prime Minister in offering bribes to the members of Parliament by treating members to free hotel accommodation, airfares, meals on the Lolowata Island Resort outside Port Moresby at about the time Parliament was set for the August session, whereby a motion of no confidence was introduced against the Prime Minister. Now, in accordance with Section 61 of the Criminal Code, members of Parliament are not supposed to solicit bribes in any manner whatsoever to debate for or against any question or motion on the floor of Parliament, and that includes the motion of no confidence under Section 145 of the Constitution. Given the fact that more than 80 members had chosen to be treated with favors from the Prime Minister, James Marape, who was facing a vote of no confidence in the August 24th session of Parliament, the soliciting of bribes and the payment of bribes is in breach of the Criminal Code, Section 61 and Section 62. And the penalty for that is 7 years. Now, we are convinced beyond a reasonable doubt, and I am convinced beyond a reasonable doubt, and our People's Anti-Corruption Movement, which is a front runner in fighting corruption in Papua New Guinea, have resolved to refer the police, refer the Prime Minister and members who have solicited bribe to the Police Crimes Division to be charged under the Criminal Code, Section 61 and 62. Now, to support our cause and our complaint against the Prime Minister, I have recited several cases that the police, the ICAC, and the Ombudsman are aware of. Case number 1 is the payment of 60 million kina of oil tax grants to the Enga provincial government. This payment was not even appropriated under the 2024 appropriation bill. So it was a clear attempt to seduce, induce, and contain the governor of Enga and members of his party and members of the Enga provincial government to remain loyal to James Marape in defeating the vote of no confidence. And thus he did. Governor Iparas had proclaimed in public, although Tom Lino had resigned as a minister, Tom Lino, the member of Wabek, has resigned as a minister, Governor Iparas took the remainder of his members and stood firmly with Marape because he was lured with 60 million kina. Unfortunately, this was contested in a court of law, and Governor of Gab, Chris Aveta, had won the case in court, and the appropriation or the grant of 60 million kina was nullified as void by the courts. Case number 2, Honourable Luta Wenge, Governor of Marape, was picked up at the airport by the governor of Hela, Governor Undialu of Hela, and taken to a Luluwata resort. Earlier, the governor of Marape had challenged or thrown up a challenge over the media that he was to challenge the Honourable James Marape for the leadership of the Pangu party. Having heard of this threat, the Prime Minister brought him on the island of Luluwata and had induced him by offering him IDG grants totaling 50 million kina, and he was paraded over with a dummy check in front of the media. Now that constitutes a clear act of bribery by the Prime Minister to contain his numbers. Case number 4. The Honourable Solan Mirisam, MP and Minister of Works, had his private medical bills totaling 200,000 kina paid by the government of Papua New Guinea. And this also constitutes an act of bribery approved by the Prime Minister himself. Now, case number 5. A certain member of parliament, the member for Ungai Bena, Fio Kinoka, as what his private construction company was awarded a construction contract worth more than 240 million kina. The construction company is Too Good Construction in the Eastern Islands province. Now, under the Constitution, Section 27 of the Leadership Code, constitutional office holders, including politicians, ministers of state, heads of department, are not supposed to enter into any business agreements with the government that will bring the reputation into question. And the member for Ungai Bena had knowingly and deliberately used his position as a member of parliament to solicit a bribe from the Prime Minister, and thus he was given this huge contract. In case number 6, and this is where I have called on Interpol and the Australian Federal Police to arrest the Prime Minister wherever he is in Australia, New Zealand or Singapore, because he had abused the office of the Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea and had directed the Secretary of Finance, the Secretary of Works, and the Public Tenders Board, or what they have changed to a fancy name called the National Procurement Commission, to award contracts to his proxy company operated by his cousin, Moses Palibe. And they awarded 3.5 billion kina worth of roadworks to Ipwen's Construction Limited, which is a company that we consider or we classify as a proxy company owned by the Prime Minister, James Marape. Now, so far, between the year 2020, between February 2023 and April 2024, this company, Ipwen's Construction, received a total of 750 million kina in contract payments for work that is yet to be verified. Now, we suspect strongly, and we now complain, we have made this official complaint to the police to arrest the Prime Minister, James Marape, and his associate or partner, Moses Palibe, to hold them accountable for the public monies that were awarded outside the procurement process as required by the Public Finance Management Act. Now, case number 7 is an interesting case because for the first time, the National Executive Council had been directed by the Prime Minister, Honourable James Marape, to approve compensation payments to a private company named Trans Wonderland. And this is owned by the Hela people, headed by a popular Hela businessman, Larry Andagali. And this company received 96 million kina for uncertified damages to a company warehouse in the Hela province. Now this was done so, and the Prime Minister had instructed or directed the former Minister for Petroleum and Energy, Honourable Keranga Kua, to do a submission, and we have every reason to believe that this did not comply with government policy and the law. The Department of Justice did not give any approval, and therefore we called on the police to investigate that company and to obtain all the accounts of E-Points Limited, E-Points Construction Limited, and Trans Wonderland Limited to see where establish the money trail, and if necessary apply the the Proceeds of Crimes Recovery Act to take back all that money. We are convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that the Prime Minister has participated in the fraud and embezzlement of public finances through the Connect PNG program, and most of that money was used to lure and bribe members of Parliament to sustain him on the floor of Parliament to continue with his corrupt practices. We have also seen how he was able to convince Parliament to pass an unlawful act of Parliament in the form of the Counter-Terrorism Bill, which is in breach of the Constitution, in depriving our basic human rights, allowing the police to arrest anybody on sight when they want to. And the People's Anti-Corruption Movement has already sounded a warning to the government, and we are now engaging lawyers. I am calling upon the international community of good citizens, anti-corruption organizations, Australian taxpayers, New Zealand taxpayers, and the world over, the Japanese and China, to support the People's Anti-Corruption Movement, to fight corruption in this country, because corruption is entrenched in Papua New Guinea. We have the Prime Minister, the former Prime Minister Peter O'Neill, and the current Prime Minister have established a kakistocracy. They have a police commissioner who only works for them. They have an ombudsman commissioner or chief ombudsman commissioner who answers to their call only. They have a judiciary that is compromised because they have the power to appoint the judges. We have a public prosecutor who does not know how to prosecute for the good of the rule of law. And the People's Anti-Corruption Movement, which I lead as chairman and public officer, was established in 2022 for the sole purpose of exposing corrupt government in Papua New Guinea. Corruption has been the cause of the decline of this country. Papua New Guinea is a very rich country that's been swallowed in corruption. Land grabbing by politicians and their partners. We have seen a lot of people misplaced in this city because politicians partner with Tukina companies. As I stated in my case here, one of the cases in this complaint to the police is case number 5, case number 3. The Honourable Powers Paco, and Governor of the National Capital District, was allocated 30 million kina, and additionally, for the building of a construction of a private hospital, and additionally, Cabinet had directed, the NEC had directed that a certain portion of land in in the suburb of Gero, known as Tata Settlement, be given to an Indian named Sangaran Subramanian. And the governor of NCD had allocated 20 million kina from ratepayers and solicited another bribe of 30 million kina from the Department of Planning, directed by the Prime Minister, of course, to hand over to Asia Pacific Pmjm Limited, a private company, outside the proper procurement process. And this is a blatant abuse of powers by the Prime Minister and the members of Parliament, including Powers Paco. And we have referred them to the Crimes Division to be investigated and charged under the Criminal Code Section 61 and 62. Now I repeat my call to the Australian Federal Police, and I repeat my call to the international police, whether it's in Singapore. If they find the Prime Minister anyway on site, they should arrest him and they should call the police in Papua New Guinea. And I, as the complainant, I will go in to testify in the court of law that the Prime Minister had abused his office and has engaged in the embezzlement of public finances. With that, I call upon the Papua New Guinea community, the people of Papua New Guinea, to ask the Prime Minister to resign his position immediately before tomorrow, and Parliament in its wisdom should set within and elect a new Prime Minister forthwith. We cannot tolerate corruption anymore because it's costing this country so much. Last month, I sent I lost a mate of mine in the hospital who had liver problems, and he was at the endocrine ward, and he was charged 300 kina for every dialysis. And when I inquired, they said the dialysis machine was owned by a Chinese businessman, and they were collecting money on the side. This was not paid to the Port Moresby General Hospital. So here, I am trying to make an appeal to the international community that corruption in Papua New Guinea is so bad. The police can't act against corruption. And I will tell you why the police can't act against corruption. Last year, the People's Anti-Corruption, which I lead, had filed a summons in the National Court of Papua New Guinea, OS number 8 of 2024. And this was filed because the current Prime Minister, James Marape, who was Finance Minister since 2012 under the O'Neill regime, had never ever complied with the Public Finance Management Act in submitting reports to the Auditor General for auditing and presenting it to Parliament as is required by law. And that alone tells us how corrupt this country is. And nobody, not even the police force, not even the commissioner, the Ombudsman Commissioner will remind him, and not even the Auditor General has written to the Prime Minister or the Finance Minister about this. We have taken this action, which is still outstanding in the court of law. We have also obtained a second summons, OS number 52 of 2024, which is against the which was obtained for the Commissioner of Police, David Manning, to come to court to show cause as to why he could not arrest and charge the Prime Minister for participating in fraud in authorizing an unlawful payment to Baraka lawyers. This case is now before the court, involving the Deputy Acting Secretary and Deputy Secretary Jacob Yafai, who has been charged for fraud, and the matter is ongoing. the Prime Minister was asked to testify as a state witness. We do not understand why, when he had given explicit and straight and clear instructions to the Secretary to make payment, when he didn't have the powers to do so because it was not ordered by the court, or it was not cleared by the Office of the Attorney General and the Office of the Solicitor General. So we have situations in this country where the police are compromised, the ombudsmen are compromised, and the judiciary is dragging its feet when it comes to matters to do with leaders of this country. We have no choice but to call on the international community to assist this country in arresting these people that we have laid criminal complaints against. And we have seen that in the last 2 weeks, the Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, Honourable James Marape, had made an unofficial trip to Singapore, and on his return, he made another trip to New Zealand, and within the same week, he's gone back to Australia. And we suspect him of money laundering because this particular company, Ipwen's Construction, has been getting paid in millions and millions of kina, and would have gone past $1 billion kina. So we suspect that Honourable James Marape is involved in money laundering, in trying to move this country move the money out of Papua New Guinea. And we are calling on the Police Crimes Division to act promptly, to assist all Interpol in calling the Prime Minister to answer at the police station with his associate or business partner, Moses Palibe, who is the owner of construction, Ipwen's Construction, and also the top 3 construction companies, which is owned by, one of the construction companies is owned by the managing director of MRDC, Oceanic Construction, which has received a lot of money. And another company is owned by Jerry Angus, which has also been paid a lot of money. Their accounts have to be investigated, and they must account for where they have been transferring the money to, because we think and we believe that that money was siphoned back to the Prime Minister to conduct his unlawful political activities by bribing members and getting them to support him to extend his stay as a member of Parliament, as Prime Minister in the PNG Parliament. Now with that, I want to appeal to all our supporters and people in this country, the 8 million people of Papua New Guinea. Corruption must come to an end. We can march, we can sing like the lawyers march. Last year, I attended the lawyers march in APEC House, and I think some of the most senior lawyers, like Moses Marape and John Quim, it made a very important point. We must restore this country to the rule of law, because now the lawyers are operating under the rule of money. And no amount of marching and no amount of speech making will change this country unless you team up, you cooperate with the People's Anti-Corruption that I lead. And we are not in law school. We are not preaching law or teaching law. We are practicing law by applying the law as it should be applied. And we are not just talking. We have given notice to the Chief Ombudsman Commissioner that we will call him to court to explain why he was not able to prosecute leaders that were implicated in the UBS oil sales loan, which was presented on the floor of Parliament in 2019. And those who were implicated included the former Prime Minister Peter O'Neill, the former Finance Minister and current Prime Minister James Marape, the former Chief of Staff Isaac Lupari, the former Acting Secretary for Treasury Daire Vele, and the the current National Petroleum Corporation Managing Director, and all these people that the Ombudsman has never acted on. So it comes to tell you a lot about the Ombudsman Commission and the Ombudsman Commissioner. We are also interested in how he had acquitted or dismissed the complaint against the people behind the Manu land deal, where the state had paid 46 million kina to a company called Kurkuram Limited, which is owned by the Minister for Public Enterprises, William Duma. I had challenged William Duma to take me to court with CSN, and I'm willing to go to court to prove that William Duma is the owner of Kurkuram Limited. And the Ombudsman Commissioner has gone to bed, and the police should charge him and arrest him for misconduct in office. Corruption has taken a foothold in this country, and I am making an international appeal to the Australian Federal Police and Interpol to James Marape, Honourable James Marape, Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, arrested and charged in Australia, and I will, the police commissioner or the assistant commissioner for crimes and myself will come into Australia to testify, because we don't want to cause any instability in Papua New Guinea. Corruption and crime must end. And for you good Papua New Guineans, you must rise up. You must come and support the People's Anti-Corruption Movement. Let me tell you an interesting fact. Since we registered the anti-corruption movement, People's Anti-Corruption Movement on the 22nd of March until now, we have not been able to open a simple bank account, because most of the banks in this country think that we are outlaws. And that simply tells you how corrupt the system is. The Bank of Papua New Guinea, the commercial banks, and every business system in this country is operating under the rule of corruption. It's the power of money. And unless the people of this country stand up to fight corruption, we are doomed. We will be living in poverty, and foreigners will come in and take our land and our business. So I'm making this call to all you Papua New Guineans. For some of you of the younger generation who don't know me, my name is John Endemongo Kua. I am 64 years old. I am originally from Chimbu. I am still a Chimbu. If you don't know where Chimbu is in the center of the highlands of Papua New Guinea, and we are still part of the. We are still the center of this country, and that is where the tallest mountain is, Mount William. I'm from Mount William, so I stand larger than life. I am not intimidated by criminals. I don't succumb to criminals and the little people. And I am leading this fight against corruption, and I'm calling against Papua New Guineans to join me in this fight for the future of our generations. Why should we feel unprotected and unsafe? Why should we not have a normal life in this country because of corruption? The counter-terrorism bill is put up by James Marape only to protect his own criminal conduct. And the counter-terrorism bill has no effect in law, because it is in breach of the Constitution insofar as civil rights are concerned. And with that, I am calling on the Australian Police, Interpol, the Federal Police to act on our complaint, which is registered at the Crimes Office, case number 290/2025 at the Assistant Commissioner at the Auditor's Office, and you can act on that complaint by holding him, arresting him in Prime Minister, arresting him in Australia or New Zealand or Singapore, wherever he is, and the police will come and lay formal charges, and he has to be charged. And we will look at all the other members of Parliament who've been soliciting bribes. Massive billions of kina have been paid out of Treasury and Finance into proxy accounts, to kina companies, all to support Marape as Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea. And amongst those was the Governor of Wanga, Sir Peter Ibaras, who was also promised 60 million kina, and he had sided with Marape, and he's also now the alternate candidate for the Prime Minister's job tomorrow. And Parliament, in its wisdom, will decide as to whether he gets the nod of approval or not, and we leave that to Parliament to decide. But we have lodged a formal complaint against the Prime Minister, who has bribed members of Parliament in the August session in 2024, and we are also making a complaint against those members who had solicited bribes by hanging around at low water and by submitting applications to finance to get finance free monies from the government, including the member of Ungai Pena, whose company has just received 240 million kina. The police should not hesitate to arrest and charge them all under Section 61 of the Criminal Code. With that, I repeat my call to Australian taxpayers to put pressure on the Prime Minister of Australia and the New Zealand taxpayers to put pressure on their governments to refuse James Marape from leaving Australia until he's properly charged by the Papua New Guinea Police Force. As he can't be charged in Papua New Guinea because the law enforcement system in Papua New Guinea is all corrupted. Thank you for watching me today. John Endemongo Kua, President of the People's Anti-Corruption Movement. And I'd like to let our followers know that as of today onwards and tomorrow, our lines will be open. Facebook live stream will be open 24 hours. If you got any questions to ask, you can ring us on our numbers. We are available to answer any question, and we will maintain that the Prime Minister be arrested. And he resigned as Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea because he has fraudulently taken money of the coffers through his proxy company, Influence Construction, ranging into billions of kina. Thank you very much for watching me.